computer. Okay, Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Welcome to our Wednesday class on Yalkut Yosef. We are in the topic of Shabbat. We were talking about Kiddush, then we spoke about the Lechem Mishneh and how we do the Hamotzi. And we're about to finish that topic and jump into the topic of the Goy. What is allowed for the Goy to do for us on Shabbat and what not? Can we hint? Can we ask? In what cases? If he did it for himself, can we enjoy? So we're going to touch these, but first, let's finish according to the order of the Yalkut Yosef. The next topic that he brings up is mentioning Hashem's name on the Shabbat table. You sing, Tzumi shelo achalnu. You sing a song, and then there's Hashem's name in there. This is not a chapter of Tehillim. This is a song that someone from 1,000 years, from 500 years, from 200 years ago wrote. Am I allowed to say Hashem, Hashem in a song that is not a source that has, back to the Torah or back to the Tanakh? So says the Yalkut Yosef that the custom, the minhag is that we are allowed to mention Hashem's name in songs, even if they're more recent. There's songs of longing and love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the famous Sephardi songs that we have on the Shabbat table. You will be allowed to mention Hashem's name. It says, however, don't say it lightly. Don't say it while you're, in a state where it's all like a joke and you're just, when you're singing, have the proper kavanah when you say Shem Hashem. Hey, Steve, Baruch haba. Sorry, we got mixed up with the hours, daylight saving. Bruchim habayim. As I said to everybody that joined earlier, whoever has to leave on time at 1:30, be comfortable. There was a mix-up with the time, but whoever could stay, we're going to go till 1:40, Be'ezrat Hashem. We started 10 minutes late. All right, so now we are in a new siman, siman Reish Ein Hey, 275 in Shulchan Aruch, and this siman talks about a decree. What's the decree? Chachamim had a certain fear. So I'll tell you the story that appears in the Gemara, and then you'll get the fear. The Gemara says that Rabbi Ishmael said to himself, I'm going to learn during Shabbat next to the candles. Back in the day, there was no light. The light was the candle, right? So he wanted to learn. So he held his book and he came next to the candle and they were learning. And they told him, Rabbi, there's a decree. We decided no one can learn next to the candle. Why? What's the logic? Anybody have a logic behind it? Who wants to guess?
Gonna tilt the oil to get more flame.
Exactly that. You're going to lift it and the flame is going to move because of you. And then it's like you lit the fire on Shabbat. We don't want to do that, obviously. So don't learn next to it. Gemara says that Rabbi Ishmael said, don't worry. I'm able to learn without tilting the candle. I'll be okay. And little do we know, he did it, he learned, and I guess he caught up in the learning and the Yalkut Yosef on Wednesday or whatever it was, and boom, he took the candle and he started to move it. And as he moved it, he did the sin. Camera's a little off, it turns on and off for some reason, but forgive me for that. So, says the Gemara, he took out on Motzei Shabbat his diary, and he wrote, Dear diary, Ani chatati, I sinned. V'kshiyibaneh Bet HaMikdash, and when Bet HaMikdash is going to be built, Avi chatat shemena, I'm going to bring a fat sacrifice. In other words, I need a korban for what I did. So you learn from here that even the greatest chacham that says, no, this is for the simple people. For me, nothing's going to happen to me. No. The decree stands, and therefore, until today, we're not allowed to learn next to a candle. However, you're going to tell me, Ziv, I don't use candles. I have a light. Can I learn next to a light? The answer is yes. But why? Maybe I'll get so caught up in the topic and I'll come to use the dimmer or I'll come to turn on a switch. No, we don't add decrees. It's called mida'atenu, from our opinion. If there's a decree from Chachamim that they put, we have to listen to it. But we're not going to add stuff on our own. And therefore, bottom line, if you're learning next to a candle, it's a problem because there's going to be a gzera, there's a decree, shema yateh, and you can't do that. But if it's next to a regular light, that won't be a problem. Now he asks another question. He says, what happened if there's a blackout? The lights turned off, and now you want to learn, but the only thing that you do have is in one room, you have the candles. Let's say it's the candle that you lit for Shabbat. And you do want to use that to learn. Or you want to use that to read Birkat Hamazon. Can you or can you not? So he says it depends. If it's something that your mouth is used to saying, like Birkat Hamazon, then you will be allowed to read next to the candle Birkat Hamazon. Why? Because there's no real fear that you're going to use it. When something is, used to your tongue, so you read in the Birkon, even if you don't see all the words, you're accustomed to it, you're going to get through it, okay? But if you want to read, he says, something next to that light, a Gemara, Torah, or something like that, that is not accustomed in your mouth, like most things, it's not a set tefillah, how will you be able to do it? Take someone next to you. Say, come next to me. Let's both learn next to this candle. And by that happening, there's some sort of protection. Okay, if I'm going to come to do something, he's going to tell me, hey, what are you doing? Shabbat. And he's going to stop me. So that's a good piece of advice in case that happens. Black hats are not so common when you have a candle lit and you want to learn. But if you're that type of tzaddik that it will happen and you will want to learn next to the candle, l'shrecha, take someone next to you unless it's something that you are familiar with. All right, and now to Siman Resh and Vav 276. This is what I've been waiting for. Ner sheudlak al yedei nochri, a candle lit by a goy. I'm going to remind you that roughly 2 years ago, we went to Yalkut Yosef, the author of this book. At the time, he was the chief rabbi of Israel as well. Now his brother is. But when he was a chief rabbi, then he got word that we're doing a class of Yalkut Yosef. He said, "Oh, Chazaku Baruch." He said, "These people are from the States. Please teach them the topics I wrote about Goy and Shabbat." That's what he told me. I said, "Okay, Rabbi, we're in the seder. We're gonna get there. We're warming up. We're gonna get there." So I felt like I had a debt to the rabbi. He said, because this is very relevant to people that live in the States, and you have a lot of workers that are goyim. It's not over here. We don't have so much that question. How many people have goyim in there? Some do, and most don't. And therefore, this is very relevant. So now, Baruch Hashem, we have the zchut to do it according to his recommendation. So we'll begin by a basic understanding of a goy. There are 2 decrees that Chachamim put on a goy. One is saying something to a goy, and one is enjoying something that a goy did. And they're 2 separate decrees, which means that if I didn't say anything to the goy and he went and turned on the light for me, okay, I may have not gone over the decree of saying something to the goy, but I'm still not allowed to enjoy the light because he did it for me. And there's also a decree of enjoying something that the goy did for me. So there are 2, one is called Amira legoy, or Amira, a saying to a goy, and one is called Hana'ah, enjoying from the goy. And these are 2 separate things, and it's important to understand that, because a lot of times when you come in front of a halacha, in front of a case, you think, okay, I'm not saying anything, I'm just hinting. No, it's not so simple. There are 2 different decrees. Why did Chachamim give us these decrees? They were worried that if a person is going to tell his goy to do whatever he wants on Shabbat, he's going to lose the value of Shabbat. Shabbat yeh kala benav. It's going to be light in his eyes. He's not going to treat it with the right respect. And therefore, 2 separate decrees. Now, can I tell a goy, if I had a black hat, as we said, or one of the children turned off the light, and now I want to learn Torah? That's a noble cause, right? Can I tell a goy, okay, I'm in the middle of a show. Can I tell a goy to turn on the light so that I could learn Torah? It's a good cause, right? So he says that there are opinions that it's forbidden, but when it comes to prayer, or it comes to limud of a crowd, let's say it's in shul, right? There are 50 people over there praying. Without this, how are they going to pray, right? So when it comes to a topic like that, then you are allowed to tell him to turn on the light for you, and you're allowed to enjoy it. Okay? Now, do I have to hint? And if so, when do I hint? So how does that work? This hinting business, because we just learned that even if I hint to him, if he does it for me, then it's a problem. So says the Yalkut Yosef like this. What is the hint that we can use? He says, you're not allowed to hint in the way that you're not saying it, but you're pointing at it and it's very clear. You're going to the light switch. That's not a hint. That's already telling him. You're just saying it's a hint. So that won't be allowed, all right? But you can say, wow, it's very hard to read over here. It's so dark, I can't see, right? That's a hint. You didn't point, you didn't say. And if the guy is smart enough, hopefully, he'll understand that and turn it on for you. But when? I can't use that all the time, because even if I didn't say, I'm still enjoying him. There has to be a case where I'm allowed to enjoy what the guy does for me. And he says, when is that? He says, for example, if already one light is on, and I'm able to read. I'm looking and I'm reading, but it's making me tired. I'm squinting. It's hard for me. I'm getting exhausted by it, and I want to strengthen an existing light. He says that is the case where you will be allowed to hint to him to do it for you because he's only adding light. He's not turning it on, and through a hint, that will be allowed. He says, however, if something happened and now the original light turned off, and the only light that now is still on is the light that got turned on through a hint to add light. Now it's not adding, now it's the only light. He said, when that happens, I will already not be allowed to enjoy the new light because the original one is gone, and now it's like I'm enjoying his light. It's not that he added a light. Okay, so there are a lot of details when it comes to enjoying what a goy can do for me on Shabbat. There's still a lot to talk. We're gonna go through it slowly, but just giving you a heads up that there's so many details. You need to be a real expert, and even when you learn this time after time after time, questions always come up. So at any point, be comfortable to ask. I hope with Hashem's help, we'll be able to answer. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. Now, what are we allowed, right? When it comes to a mitzvah of the Oraita, for example, okay, let's differentiate for a second between isurim that are from the Torah and isurim from Chachamim. From the Torah and Shabbat, the isurim are more clear. We're not allowed to turn on a fire. That's a isur from Shabbat. But turning on an LED light switch, for example, not everybody, but almost everybody agrees that that is from Chachamim because it's not a real fire. The old light bulbs, they had like a little spiral metal inside them. And when you turn on the switch, that would actually be warm. You would touch the light bulb. That would be considered a fire. That would be a soul from the Torah. But all the new light bulbs that you have in new fridges or LEDs, those don't work in the way of fire and heat. And therefore, most poskim hold that that is a isur de Rabbanan, which is a lot lighter. What is it lighter for? So we'll see. Let's give an example. It's the day of Yom Kippur, right? And there's a candle in shul. Let's talk about the old days when there were candles and not a light. Or maybe a light bulb that is an old light bulb that is actually considered like a fire. And now that candle turn off. Am I allowed to tell a goy to turn on that candle for us or that light bulb for us? Says the Shulchan Aruch, yes. Why? First of all, because there's a great need. There's a rabbim here. A lot of people are in need of this. Okay, we allow it for a lot of people when it's the Rabbanan, but when it's from the Torah, we'll still allow it. He says yes, because there's one opinion of a rabbi called Baal Ha'itur. It's hard to remember all the opinions, but this opinion, let's remember, because he's famous for his lenient opinion. Baal Ha'itur says that I'm allowed to tell a goy to make a melacha from the Torah, not from Chachamim, a melacha from the Torah when there is a mitzvah involved. So when I'm in shul, if it's prayer, if it's limud Torah, no problem, goy, come light a candle for us. Not everybody agrees with Baal Ha'itur. Most people will hold that if I exul from Chachamim, it would be okay. From the Torah, it's a problem. However, in a case like this, says Yalkut Yosef, since it's Yom Kippurim and you're in shul and there's a dechak, then we are allowed to rely on the opinion of Baal Ha'itur, and we will allow the goy to turn on it for us. Right? Now, if it's chashmal, if it's just electricity, if it's just a LED light or turning on the AC or something like that, that's already much lighter. Because there's a general rule. The rule says that whenever the transgression, the isur, is from Chachamim, electricity is a isur from Chachamim. It's not a isur from the Torah, okay? Whenever the isur is from Chachamim, then I'm allowed to enjoy it for a good cause through a goy. That's not a problem. For example, one time this happened to me. I was my in-laws' house in Great Neck, and by mistake we pushed with the leg. Someone pushed a vacuum thing, and it went on, and whoa, and it was really tzal. It was really impossible to sit on the Shabbat table, right? So turning off that switch would be a isur from Chachamim. So if you have a goy there, some say even the Jew himself could do it because there's makom tzal. But let's go to the easier case. If you have a goy there, it's very easy to tell the goy, please turn that off. Why? Because if the goy is doing it, it's already one level of deduction. It's not me, it's the goy. And the second level of deduction is that the isur, the turning off, is not a isur from the Torah. The turning off is only a isur from Chachamim. So when you have those two levels of deduction, it's called shvut d'shvut. The language of Chachamim is shvut d'shvut. It's like, reminds us of the word Shabbat. It's like a lighter transgression of the Shabbat when it's done through a goy, when it's done through a Isur de Rabbanan. So when you have two of those, one is the goy and one the actual transgression itself is on a lighter level, then in these following cases, you will be allowed to do what you want to do. If there's tza'al, meaning if this upsets you and makes you very uncomfortable, or if there's a need for a mitzvah, or if there's a lot of people involved in this, like in a shul. So for those special cases, b'makom tzorech gadol, if there's a big need, then we are lenient and we allow it. So if I want you to remember certain things from this halakha that we just learned now, which is pretty informative, I want you to remember the opinion of Baal Haitur. When someone asks you, who's Baal Haitur? Oh, Baal Haitur is he who holds that even a isur from the Torah, if it's for a group of people, if it's for a mitzvah in shul, I can tell the goy to do it. I don't need to only allow him to do stuff from Chachamim. Even from the Torah, if it's a real fire, that's the Baal Haitur. And the other term that I want you to remember is shvut de shvut, when it's two deductions of the level of the severity of the sin, of the Chilul Shabbat. One is a goy, and not me myself, and the other, that it's not from the Torah, but rather from Chachamim. When I have two of those, then everybody agrees, not just Baal Haitur. Everybody will agree that I can tell the goy to do for certain cases that are severe, like tza'al, like it's sadness, if it destroys my Shabbat, or if there's a mitzvah involved, or rabim, something for the need of the group. All right, so those are two strong foundations that we should get. Now, what do we do on trips? We want to go to a hotel, right? So I don't know if you noticed, I don't know how it works in the States, but in Israel, you could have a glatt kosher hotel. And you know what you see on Shabbat? You see the goy taking the plata, the hot plate, and plugging it in on Shabbat. Now, I want to ask you a question. Is a plata plugging into the electricity, and maybe a trick question, is that considered a Isur Torah or Isur from Chachamim? So I'll answer because it's a trick question. Why is it a trick question? Because I just said that any sort of electricity is only considered a Isur from Chachamim. It's not from the Torah. However, if there is a spiral that lights up and heats, like fire involved, then even though it's used by electricity, but it creates that, then it would be a sur from the Torah. Like the light bulb. Remember, I just told you that in the past they had a light bulb with that spiral metal that would, really turn red and hot. So there are very few things that have electricity and are asurim from the Torah. One of them is the hot plate, is the plata, okay? The other one is the samaval, the water heater. That too, if you would open the mechanism, you would see a spiral that turns red when it's plugged in. So that's kind of like a fire. And the third thing would be the oven. The oven, if you look on top, you'll see those red spiral things on top heating up the oven. So since it takes out a source of heat, it's like fire. Those three are the electricity that leads to a sur from the Torah. But anything else, you want to turn on a fan, you want to turn on the AC, you want to turn on a light, I'm talking about an LED light. You open the fridge and an LED light turns on. All these things are isur from Chachamim. Now, we're not allowed to do isur from Chachamim also. But once we understand that it's from Chachamim, and we understand when there's leniency, then we could rely on certain opinions to do that. Okay? So that's why it is important to know what's from the Torah and what's from Chachamim. So from the Torah, it's really about a flame. I'm not talking about, there's also you're forbidden to hunt, you're forbidden to plant. That's also from the Torah. There are 39 melachot. But I'm talking about the classic turning on a fire on Shabbat. Electricity won't be considered that unless it's one of those things that has that spiral inside of it. So now, how could it be that I'm sitting in a hotel on Shabbat and the goy is plugging in a hot plate on Shabbat? And the answer is that the mashgiach is very careful to do the following. The mashgiach takes a Shabbat clock and he puts it into the electricity. And when the goy plugs it in, at that moment, the plata is not turning on. The hot plate is not turning on. But it has a timer, and let's say in half hour, an hour, whenever it is, it's going to turn on. So even though it's going to lead to a isur from the Torah, but since it's done and an indirect way, it reduces it to a level of chachamim. Anybody know what that indirect level is called? It's called grama. Have you ever heard that before? Grama comes from the word in Hebrew, ligrom, gorem. It makes it happen. You didn't turn on the light. You did something that led to it. Of course, I can't do it. But when the goy plugs it in, already we reached what we wanted to reach. We wanted to reach 2 levels of deduction for a need of the plenty. There are a lot of people there that need to eat on Shabbat. They're going to eat cold food, and it's going to kill the pleasure of Shabbat. Okay, so we will allow, but only if there are 2 levels of deduction. What are the levels of deduction? Number 1, a goy is doing it. Number 2, even though it's a issur from the Torah, but he's doing it in an indirect way. It's not right away. It's going to take time, and therefore that's another level of deduction. We got to the 2. It's called shvut ishvut. Once again, when there's a need for a big crowd. So if you see a goy plugging in a hot plate on Shabbat, and there's a timer over there, don't go, no. It's okay. He knows what he's doing, assuming that there's a proper mashgiach. Some hotels do not have that, and then the guy just plugs it in and does whatever he wants. That's a different topic. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about the mashgichim that follow the halacha. When you have the knowledge, then you are able to do certain things. Okay. So there's another case where we are allowed to do 2 reductions. It's called trei de rabbanan or shvut shvut, as in two things that are lower to the level of chachamim. If there is a light in the room, and now someone is not able to fall asleep because of the light, can we turn off the light? Now, it would seem very strange to say that I could turn off the light, okay? So I'm not even talking about me, because there are opinions that say that even I could turn off the lights, because it's giving me tzav, and the turning off is only a melacha from chachamim and not from the Torah, and therefore, if it's for a little boy under 6 years old, it's easy. And if it's not for a little boy, I could do it with a change. A change also reduces the level of severity, which means if you turn on the light with your finger, that could be a issur from the Torah if it's a firelight, if it has a spiral in it. But if you turn it on with your elbow, it's still a issur, but now you deducted it to a level of chachamim. That's called shinui. Okay? Again, there are a lot of points here, but if you remember these key points, what leads to the deduction of the level of the severity of the sin, of the chilul Shabbat, that's it. If you have those in your palm, and there are not so many of them, one of them is through a goy. One of them is beshinui, as we said right now. One of them is through grama, when you don't do it directly, but rather indirectly. All of those things deduct the level, and then you reach a derabanan. You still need 2 levels of derabanan, and a certain case, like for a lot of people or whatever. But still, so one of the things that we consider a problem is tzar. Like I said with the vacuum example, the noise is giving me tzar on Shabbat, and it's ruining my Shabbat. If someone cannot sleep, actually cannot sleep on Shabbat with the light in the room, he has tzar from it. So what is he going to do? So you would be allowed to tell a goy, turn off the light for me, I want to sleep. Why? Because, okay, I just gave you the foundation. So who can tell me, how come I'm allowed? What 2 derabanans do we have here? What 2 reductions do we have here? Okay, so first of all, no, any turning off is a issur only from chachamim. Even if you turned on a fire, turning off the fire is from chachamim. It's not from the Torah. The only case that when you turn off something, it's a issur from the Torah, is when you're turning off a log of wood to use it for coals. So the turning off is actually for a purpose. Then it's min Torah. But any other case, any turn off of anything is always from chachamim. So right away, when I come off to turn the light, okay, that's from chachamim. We have 1 in our pocket. Number 2, I do it through a goy. Another level of deduction. When someone is in need, I can't just do it because I want to save electricity. No. But if someone is trying to sleep and it gives him tzar and he can't fall asleep, then says the Yalkut Yosef, hint to the goy, say, wow, I can't sleep in this light. But if he doesn't understand your hint, he says, you'll be allowed to tell him directly. And how much more so if there's a little boy or someone sick in the room. Halachically, anyone under 6 years old is considered a chole in halachic terms. He's sick. So you're allowed to do isur de rabbanan, you're allowed to do a transgression from chachamim, for someone that's sick. And that includes boys, little children as well. So there are few leniencies over here, even to an extent when the boy is not around. Rav Budbud, the son-in-law of Rav Ovadia, holds that I could turn off the light myself with my elbow. Because by doing it with my elbow, one, it's from Chachamim, because it's a turn off. Two, I'm doing it in a change. That's another deduction. And it's for the need of not having a sad Shabbat. I want to be able to fall asleep. We had a lot of different things here that led for us, that would be allowed for us. I am coming to go into a hospital. Lo alenu, let's say it's for a happy occasion. You want to walk into a hospital on Shabbat. And now a lot of these doors have an electric eye. And once you pass it open, you go close it, right? Okay? Especially with sound effects. Now, is that okay? Is that not okay? So obviously, it's not a issue from the Torah. You're not creating a fire. This is electric issue. Okay? And therefore, there is a way to go in. What's the way to go in? Wait for a goy to go in. In America, it's easier. You have goyim coming into the hospital. And when he walks in, walk in with him. Or wait for someone sick to go in. Even if he's not a goy, since he's sick, he needs service from the hospital right now. He's going in. It's allowed for him. You're tagging along. You go in with him. All right? Or even if a doctor wants to go in, since the doctor, wow, live alarm. Okay, we have a couple of minutes. Even if a doctor wants to go in, you can tag along to the doctor. Why? Because the doctor is also going in through the eye with heter. He's allowed to. Why? Because he's giving service to people that need help. So anyone that can go in a way that is allowed for him, you could tag along with him and go through that eye. So gentlemen, we're going to finish over here. There's an alarm coming. I want to wish you all a besarot tavot, and we'll see you Hashem next week.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Moses, thank you.